Hello, in this section of our full stack Kotlin application course, we'll be creating complex views with React. We'll take a look at React component lifecycle and component lifecycle methods, and then we'll take a look at React application state management patterns and a communication between React components. Finally, we'll see how to handle multi-view applications and see how to handle routing between different views. This video will be touching React component lifecycle and state management. We'll see React component lifecycle methods and use those lifecycle methods to modify our application state. And then we'll see React state management and how to make the renderer know that state has changed. React component has 7 different lifecycle methods that can be categorized into 3 different categories. In the mounting category, we have 3 methods that we can use to modify the React component. First one will be called before the component itself is actually rendered into the DOM. That is called component will mount. And then we have the actual render method itself. Finally, the third method is component did mount, that is usually used to fetch some data from the backend, doing XHR or otherwise modifying the state of our component. In the updating lifecycle, we have 5 methods. The first one is component will receive props, so if there is a need to modify the props in some way, for example, this method can be used to do that. The second one is should component update, so at times we might want to prevent component from updating even if the props have been changed. This method can be used to check that and return a boolean value whether to update or not. After that we have component will update that will be called just before the new re-rendering happens. Finally, we have the render method and component did update if there is something that we want to do after the component has been updated. The third category is unmounting, and it has only one method, that is component will unmount. This can be used to, let's say, modify the DOM if you have assigned or bound DOM elements or event handlers into the DOM itself outside of the React lifecycle. You can use component will unmount to delete or destroy those event handlings or listeners. Let's take a look at these in action. So previously we created a main function with rendering a React DOM element that contained 2 React components. Now we will start creating our first actual React component. So we'll create the entry point component that is usually called application. This application will contain all of the data, or it will be the first component that will be hit within our React application, and it will contain all the other components that we will use. We'll follow the same pattern in here, so we'll extend a React DOM component, and we have 2 internal classes within our application class. These classes are called props and state. In this case, the state class has actual values in here, so we have show warning boolean property within our state class. The props itself is empty, and instead of using React DOM component, we could be using React props-less component instead. But let's go with a DOM component for now, because we know that we might be passing in DOM props into this component in the future. Of course, we want to override the render method, so we'll do that. And we'll also create the companion object, so we have the invoke methods available for us. State initialization is easy, so we'll initialize the state just calling the state class. We have a default boolean false value in here, so that will be set when the component renders initially. The implementation of this one let's copy that from our hello application. So in here we had our div that we used to render these hello and world components. Let's move that into our application for now. So we have that set out, and therefore we can modify the React DOM.render method just to call the application, and let's pass in an empty lambda in there as well. Now that we have our hello KT set up, we can focus on our application component. We want to fetch some data initially from the back end, but before we jump into XHR requests with React, let's do a dummy data set by using the lifecycle methods within our React component. So we'll modify our component didMount method, and in here we'll use window set timeout, so JavaScript timeout, to see that we can modify the component. Let's add that timeout of 5 seconds, and let's try to modify the state from here. So after 5 seconds after the component has been rendered, we will be setting the state to be true in show warning. And also we'll modify the render method itself to use a standard Kotlin when clause. If the state is true, we'll render just an h1 that says you have been looking at this application for too long. And then else we will be just displaying the previous components that print out hello world. Let's hit Ctrl F5 and rebuild the Gradle, recompile with Gradle our Kotlin application, and see what happens when we open the browser. So we have hi world in here, and if we wait 5 seconds, we are expecting the rendered text to change. And here we can see that we have the application component and 2 different components within it, but nothing actually changes in here, so we have done something wrong within our React application. Let's jump back into the code and see what it could be. So in here we are modifying our state directly. That is actually a no-no in React world. React exposes a function for us that is called setState. Within this setState we can then modify our state, and this setState also has a hook that tells React DOM that we want to re-render our application. Then it goes through the whole lifecycle, so it sees that there is a trigger for rendering, it sees that props or state has changed and makes a diff, and sees that we want to see the new state of our application. So let's hit Ctrl F5 again and see the browser. Webpack wants to refetch or reload the page, and now we have hi world in here, and 5 seconds later we can see that the h1 has been printed out. And our React component or React dev tool shows as well that there is just one h1 element that has been rendered. That is everything for this video. We went through the React component lifecycle and took a look at component didMount method, as well as state management.